Welcome to Giant Ability TV.
Take cognizance of the fact that man is man because of others. Alone, man is an animal. It is important also to appreciate the place of international diplomacy, which is a product of interconnectedness that makes the countries of the world dependent on one another, and the reason for the creation of the United Nations and its affiliate agencies. The world, without gainsaying the fact, is a global village, the reality that has been enhanced by technological advancement. Nigeria is reputed to be the largest economy, as well as democracy within the African continent, and by this important position cannot be hidden from the face of the entire world. It is noteworthy also that it is of strategic importance to the Western world, as it is believed that whatever happens within it or to it, either for good or bad, does not only affect the African continent, but the world at large. To this end, countries within the continent and the outside of it are concerned and willing to give a helping hand wherever and whenever it is necessary for the sake of ensuring the peace and stability of the continent and the world at large. Democracy, which is popularly defined as the government of the people, by the people, and for the people, is not a creation of Nigeria as it were, but a system borrowed or copied from the Western world, especially the United States of America. It is important also to realize that being a system that has existed for centuries and taken root outside the shores of Nigeria has also its do's and don'ts. That is, there are critical fundamental principles and laws that govern it. It follows that you cannot practice a system outside the accompanying principles and laws that govern it. Most of the African countries that claim to be in democracy are falling short of the rudiments and ingredients that make the system worthwhile, and hence the failure on the part of these countries to guarantee the flow of the dividend of the system to the people they govern. The United States of America is the custodian of democracy and a beacon of light to other countries that are practicing democracy. But the problem for a long time has been the lack of the political will on the part of the United States to keep a watchful eyes on how these countries who claim to be in democracy are operating the system. These problems may be due to certain constraints that America cannot bypass, but at this point it is imperative that measures have to be introduced to achieve the goal of making the system meaningful and worthwhile wherever it is practiced. For anything that is worth doing at all, it's worth doing well. One is not oblivious of the concerns that America has and all the efforts that have and are being made to ensure quality delivery of the dividend of democracy to the people wherever it is said to be practiced. But time is ripe for stringent conditions to be put in place to avoid the waste of resources that have been deployed to and received by the countries in question under the guise of being in democracy.
As we engage with your countries, the United States will always lead with our values: support for democracy, respect for the rule of law, commitment to human rights, responsible government. All are part of our DNA. That doesn't mean we always get everything right. We surely don't. And the work of democracy is never finished or never guaranteed. It's about consistent and constant self-improvement. But that's why democracy is the best tool we have to address the wide range of challenges we all face. And that belief is shared by Africans and Americans alike. For South Africa's world-changing triumph over apartheid, to Nigeria's not too young to run movement, empowering a new generation of changemakers, to the record voter turnout in Zambia, where young people demanded a better future, we see over and over again that our greatest power is our people.
Understandably, in a democracy, the state is a product of a set of laws that is referred to as a constitution, as well as relevant democratic processes such as elections of the citizens of a particular country into positions of power, a process that gives birth to accountability. Worthy of note is that the failure in any of the processes that lead to the election of people into positions or the dispensation of justice automatically makes democracy adulterated and incapable of delivering the dividend of democracy to the people. Nigeria as a country since 1999, when power was returned to the civilian, has succeeded in preserving democracy even though the constitution on which the system runs is far from being adjudged as people-oriented and therefore does not represent what it poses to be as a representation of the will of the people. Since 1999, the country has been trying and improving gradually on the practice of democracy, though with high level of apathy among the people towards electing their preferred candidates into offices. Simply because of the lack of transparency in the electoral processes and trust in the electoral umpire and the judiciary, which supposedly is the last hope of the common man. A new dimension was introduced in 2023 when the president of the country, Muhammadu Buhari, announced to the whole world at the 77th edition of the United Nations General Assembly in New York that his goal was to leave for Nigerians a legacy of fair, transparent, and credible electoral processes. This was further intensified by the introduction of the Beavers machine, which supposedly was to curb the traditional rigging and other electoral irregularities, as the electronic accreditation of electorate and the transmission of the election result sheets from the polling booths to the iRef server on real time was to be a game changer. These processes were backed up by the signing into law of the 2022 electoral bill by the president. These developments raised the hope of Nigerians, especially the youths, who aligned themselves with a new platform and with vibrant presidential and vice presidential aspirants in persons of Mr. Peter Gregory Obi and Dati Yusuf Baba Ahmed of the Labour Party LP. The disappointing and shameful outcomes are no longer news to the world. They fit in for description as the worst elections ever conducted in the history of Nigeria since 1999 and have been adjudged by both the local and international observers as having fallen short of the minimum standard that makes it credible. With all the violence, death, and protests that characterize both the election and post-election times, the only option available to have Nigerians achieve their long-age dream of a new Nigeria is the court of the land. Worthy of mention is the fact that Nigerians have no hope in the judiciary because of its antecedents. Nevertheless, they opted for it being the last option but not hope. America and other advanced Western democracies are hereby called upon not to allow the evils being perpetrated against the people, especially by the ruling All Progressives Congress Party that has fraudulently produced its national leader, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, as the president-elect, with an unprecedented history of carnage from terrorism and banditry brought upon Nigerians from 2015 to date, to be swept under the carpet. The major prayers of the opposition parties before the court are that first and foremost, the candidate declared by INEC and the government in power as president-elect is an ex-convict because of his involvement in drugs dealings in the United States of America, for which he forfeited more than $400,000 to the court for him not to go to jail, and therefore was not qualified to contest an election in Nigeria. Other irregularities, such as the suppression and intimidation of voters, as well as falsification of election results, are prominent. On a final note, it is incumbent upon the Nigerian judiciary to follow the path of wisdom and decorum, to give what it cannot keep, which is justice, in order to gain what it cannot lose, which is integrity. The eyes of the entire world are on the Nigerian judiciary. This one more and last time, especially with regards to the pre-qualification matter of the president-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu, a New Yorker cartoon states, "I wish you will make up your mind, Mr. Dickens. Was it the best of times or was it the worst of times? It can scarcely have been both."
Politicians should allow the judiciary to function. Law is not static. And that's why you have seen that the National Assembly had continued to amend the laws. And it is the law that the courts apply to the facts available. We shall continue to do justice if only Nigerians will allow us to perform and function without any pressure.
God bless Nigeria.
Thank you for watching.